Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. I want to share with you what a rabbi thinks of Donald Trump. This comes from a July 18th, 2018 issue of the American Spectator, and I have whittled it down somewhat. It's not verbatim, and put some of my own opinion in here. But Rabbi Dov Fisher is an attorney. He's also an adjunct professor of law and a lot more. He writes of President Trump, "Everyone is smart except Donald J. Trump. That's why they're all billionaires and why they all got elected president. You see, only Trump does not know what he's doing. Only Trump does not know how to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Anderson Cooper knows. The whole crowd at MSNBC knows, as do all the journalists. But here's the thing. These same people could not stand up to Matt Lauer at NBC and stop him from what he was doing. They could not stand up to Charlie Rose at CBS. They could not stand up to Mark Halperin at NBC, nor Leon Wieseltler at the New Republic, nor Jan Wenner at the Rolling Stone, nor Michael Oreskes at NPR, or at the New York Times, or at the Associated Press. But oh wow, can they ever stand up to Putin? Well, remember the 4 years when Anderson Cooper was president of the United States? And before that, when the entire Washington Post editorial staff were elected to be president. Do you remember that? Well, neither do I. The seedier media elements never have negotiated life and death. Not corporate life and death, and certainly not human life and death. And yet they think they do every day. They go to college, they're told by peers that they're smart, they get some good grades, they proceed to a graduate degree in journalism, they get hired to do analysis, and now they're experts, ready to take on Putin and the Iranian Ayatollahs at age 30. The alternate road is first-hand experience that along the way may force you into some street fights. Fights where sometimes the other guy wins and sometimes you win. When you deal with grown-ups, as you mature, you learn that people can be nasty, often after they smile and speak softly. And so you get cheated a few times, you get played, and you learn. Maybe you become an attorney litigating multi-million-dollar case matters. Maybe you become a real estate developer. Your winning smile and losing is the education you need. Those years can teach a great deal, things you didn't learn in college. At some point, with enough tough-nosed experience, you figure it all out. And along the way, you figure out Trump's the art of the deal for yourself. Or you fail and go out of business. Trump's voters understanding because not only is he we, but we are he. We are not snowflaked for life by effete professors who themselves never had to negotiate tough life or death serious deals. Instead, we live in the real world and we know how that works. Not based on social science theories, not based on conceptual negotiating models, but based on the people we have met over life and will always remember, both the good and the bad, since they both taught us things we needed to learn. You know the ones. That boss who used us and then discarded us to pad his resume. That coworker who tried to sabotage us and then blamed us. We know those reprobates whom we survived, the dastardly types who are out there, and we learn from those experiences how to deal with them. Every American president has complained about the cheating and imbalance from our partners in Europe, the NATO penny-pinching cheapness, the tariff and trade imbalances. In more recent years, the various Bushes complained about it. Even Obama complained about it. But they all did it so gently, so diplomatically, that the result was another 4 years of America being suckered and snookered. All they had to do was give Obama a Nobel Peace Prize, his 9th month in office, and then let Kerry ride his bike around Paris. And they got whatever they wanted. Then along came Donald Trump. Trump did what any effective negotiator would do. He took note of past approaches to NATO and their failures, and correctly determined that the only way to get these nations to pay the freight would be to confront their abuse and clearly tell them it is not going to happen on my watch. And that's exactly what he did. You don't like it? Then we'll pull all of our troops out of Europe. How did they respond? CNN, the Washington Post, and many other liberal organs attacked Trump, claiming he's destroying the alliance. He's attacking our friends. And then there's Putin. Putin is a really bad guy. Now, he's better than Lenin, better than Stalin, Khrushchev, Kosygin, Brezhnev, Pol Pot, Mao, but he's really a bad guy. However, here's the important thing to know. Putin is a dictator. Dictators answer to no one. They do whatever they want. Maybe the opponent is put in jail. Maybe the opponent gets poked with a poisoned umbrella. Maybe he gets shot on the street. One way or another, opponents go away. So here's what Trump knows about bullies. And Putin's a bully. If you insult Putin in public, like telling the news media just before or after a meeting with him that he's the butcher of Crimea, that he messed with our elections, that he's an overall jerk, then you're going to get nothing behind closed doors from Vladimir Putin. Putin will decide, I don't need you and I don't need this relationship. And Putin will get even. He will take intense personal revenge, even if it's bad for Russia, even if it's bad for Putin, because there are no institutional reins on him. But if you go in public and tell everyone that Putin is a nice guy, that Putin intensely maintains that he did not mess with our elections, even though he probably did, then you can maintain the momentum established beforehand in the private room, which was that this garbage has to stop or else. You can proceed to remind Putin what you told him privately. That if he messes with Syria, we will do thus and so. If he messes with our Iran boycott, we'll do this over here. That we will generate so much oil from hydraulic fracturing and from Anwar and from all our sources that we will glut the market. If not tomorrow, then a year from now. That we will send even more lethal offensive military weapons to Ukraine. That we will restore the promised shield to Eastern Europe that Obama pulled out. And even if we can't mess with Russian elections because they don't have elections, they do have computers, and so help us, we will mess with your technology in a way you cannot imagine. You see, Trump's a street fighter. He has negotiated with organized crime bosses building in New York City. He knows from his advisors what we can do. If he sweet talks Putin in public, then everything Trump has told him privately can be reinforced with action, and he can even wedge concessions because, against this background, Putin knows that no one will believe he made any concessions. Everyone is set to believe that Putin is getting whatever he wants, that Trump understands nothing. And in this setting, Putin can make concessions and save face. So Trump talks about him as an honest negotiator and a friend. And that's the only possible way to do it when negotiating with a tyrant who has no checks and balances on him. If you embarrass the tyrant publicly, then the tyrant never will make concessions because he'll fear that people will say he was intimidated and he backed down. And that will never do. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has expelled 60 Russians from America, reversed Obama policy, and sent lethal weapons to Ukraine, is pressing Germany severely on its pipeline project to Russia. At the end of the day, Donald Trump is over 70 years old, and he has made many mistakes in his life. He still makes some. He's human. But Trump likewise has spent 70 years learning. He has seen some of his businesses go bankrupt, and he has learned from those experiences to be a billionaire and not to let it happen again. No doubt he has been fooled, outsmarted in years past, and he's learned from life. What he says about a negotiating opponent publicly is not what matters. What matters is what happens months later. In his first 18 months in Washington, this man has turned around the American economy, brought us near full employment, reduced the welfare and food stamp lines, wiped out ISIS and Raqqa, moved America's Israel embassy to Jerusalem, successfully launched massive deregulation of the economy, has opened oil exploration in Anwar, is rebuilding the military massively, has walked out of the useless Paris Climate Accords that were negotiated by America's amateurs who always get snookered, canned the disastrous Iran deal, exited the bogus United Nations Human Rights Council, has Canada and Mexico convinced we will walk out of NAFTA if they don't pony up, and has the Europeans convinced he will walk out of NATO if they don't stop being the cheap and lazy parasitic penny pinchers they are. At home, he slashed income taxes, expanded legal protections for college students falsely accused of crimes, has taken real steps to protect religious freedoms and liberties promised in the First Amendment, has boldly taken on the legislative mess that he inherited from Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama on immigration, and has appointed a steady line of remarkably brilliant conservative federal judges to sit on the district courts, the circuit appellate courts, and the Supreme Court. What have the Anderson Coopers, the Jim Acostas, or the editorial staffs of the New York Times and Washington Post achieved during this same period? They were not even able to stand up to co-workers and celebrities within their orbits who were abusers, who were abusing people sexually, psychologically, and or emotionally. They have no accomplishments to compare to his. They gave us 8 years of Nobel Peace Laureate Obama negotiating with the ISIS JV team, calming the rise of the oceans and healing the planet. We'll take Trump negotiating with Putin any day.